Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Impact Series hosted by 4Zero. Today, I am absolutely delighted to have Tim Štepić here from Climate EU. So Tim is the founder and CEO of Climate EU. He's also recently been nominated or put on the Forbes 30 under 30 list. And is genuinely an all-round great guy. So, Tim, look, absolutely thrilled to have you today. How's it been going last week or so?
Oh, a crazy week. I mean, the Forbes thing came out of nowhere. Lots of things happened. Thanks so much for having me, first of all. Really great to be here.
My pleasure. Well, yeah, one of the things that surprised me about yourself, Tim, is how you can get so much done, with so little resources. And I know we joked about it, but I think you must operate off next to no sleep because you've got so much going on with Climate EU. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I think you learn how to automate things and how to get better at it. But definitely the first 6 months of running this thing, I wasn't sleeping a lot. Yeah, I got a lot of jokes from my friends and family about that, but I'm getting better at it, and I have a bunch of amazing volunteers as well, and a few people starting to work for me. So we're getting there, but it's definitely some longer nights still.
And one of the great things as well, we even had this. We were having a debate about headphones, and you said that you work with 2 sets of AirPods because you're on video and conversation so much that you need a backup.
Yeah, exactly. I heard now. A good trick is also to always use one. I think you also mentioned that.
Yeah.
But they always die when you have a lot of meetings, and then I don't want to use the laptop. Sometimes I'm in a co-working space, so yeah, I always have the two pairs of headphones with me.
Love that. So look, Tim, for those people that aren't familiar with the business, and yourself, if you could kind of give a little bit of an intro into, what Climate EU is, and just to kind of give a bit of an intro about the business, and obviously, the impact that you're having and hoping to have with the business moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. So, in a nutshell, and I try to keep it as short as possible, I have a business background. I studied business for 6 years. I studied a really good master in St. Gallen, and everyone was going into consulting, venture capital, private equity, and they all had these big plans. But I knew I wanted to do something that has a clear impact, and I didn't really see anything out there. I was like, okay, I can really use my skills there to do some good for the world. And really got into social entrepreneurship. Back then, heard about the whole clean tech movement. And then at some point came across this term climate tech. Got super excited about it. It's like, what is this all about? So it was first from actually a job seeker perspective, kind of what's out there? Okay, is that clean tech? What's the difference? And all these offsetting companies. And it was kind of like, maybe had a rough feeling for, okay, this is kind of something exciting, but I don't really know what it is. And then still being a student back then, I just did a lot of internships where somehow I ended up working on climate tech again. So I joined a venture builder in Berlin called Merantix, and we looked at the intersection of AI and climate tech and how can we build companies that, for example, use satellite data and build Earth observation startups that can help, for example, protect forests. Then joined the venture capital fund. They hadn't invested in climate tech. Everyone was excited about it. So then I spent a few months looking at climate tech again. And I was like, oh, wow, this is very cool. And then realized no one really understood what climate tech meant. I didn't really understand it deeply, and just thought, okay, I was done with my master. I was about to apply for climate tech venture capital fund, and then realized, why not just build something in the space and kind of help people figure that out while I'm also figuring it out. It wasn't like I was an expert back then. So yeah, roughly a year ago, I just started putting together databases. So now, both from an investor perspective, what is this whole scene about? And then also from a job seeker's perspective, where can I work even if I have an ordinary background? I'm not a scientist. I haven't studied environmental science. So yeah, it's just a platform and starting point for anyone, and an online community for anyone that wants to come into the space. If you want to learn what are the employers out there, or if you're a VC looking to invest, or you're a founder within the climate tech space and you're trying to understand which investors actually invest into this space and who should I talk to, then this is basically the space that we're building.
Yeah, I mean, it's super cool. So I've been following your journey from pretty early on, I think. But I mean, it's a kind of almost like a one-stop shop, if that makes sense. So you've got information of great companies out there that are making a huge impact. Like you said, the venture capital funds that are investing in the space. So that can be used by the founders and the execs of those companies to kind of seek out funding to kind of make their dreams a reality and bring their visions to light. And the community as well, you've just launched as well, which is great. And but you've got, so when did you really kick off with this? When did it kind of, when did you really kind of get motoring with this in earnest, Tim?
Yeah, so until January, February, I was just doing some LinkedIn posts, publishing some Google Sheets, and then first week of February this year, actually, I started a little like no-code website just based on like one database. It was just, I think, the first like 1,000 to 2,000 climate tech startups and like a homepage. That's where we really started. Then in March or April, I kicked off the newsletter, which is basically just a weekly summary of all the deals that are happening, all the upcoming funding rounds, not just the ones that were closed the last week. Mostly because for investors, it's really interesting to stay on top of things, but also for job seekers, if someone gets funding, that means they're going to hire soon. So then you can check in, see who got funding, and then apply. It kind of went from there. Yeah.
And it's and I think at the start you were saying you weren't sure if you could, like, if this was going to be something that could, make, pay your bills, essentially, could kind of, support you. And it certainly is. It's certainly kind of, growing and growing, isn't it?
Yeah, I had no idea, to be honest. The idea was to just spend at least a year on it and just like use my personal savings for it. And then by the end of the year, evaluate, can I live off this or can't I? And luckily this month, I know I can live off it. So this is going to continue for a long time from here on. But yeah, we did it 9-10 months pro bono, then started building premium access for VCs and for startups. And yeah, it's been going good. So excited that like that was the goal, right? To make a career helping people move into a space that I'm very excited about. So I really can't complain.
Yeah, exactly. We're walking a very similar path in different ways. Again, that's kind of what gets me out of bed in the morning, is to help people, find a job or actually join a company that are making a real impact in the world. Because that's, I suppose if you can make your purpose and your passion, if you can make that your job, it doesn't feel like work, and it's a no-brainer. It's a win-win. So if someone can join a company and they're doing using their skills to kind of help that company achieve their vision of making the world a better place and more sustainable for our children, it's win-win and win for the planet as well. So it's I think it's a great cause, a great place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just it's great for the person getting the job in the space, but then also I feel like there's such a movement of people who want to move into the space that it's almost starting like to become this like domino effect of companies that maybe aren't doing something like good at the moment. They have a lot more pressure to deliver on climate targets and so on, because otherwise talent is going to run away. So it's just great to facilitate kind of that movement and put some pressure.
Yeah. Well, look, I was going to look a question for you. Is that I know you've been doing. Well, before I ask you, I've got a good question for you. Before I ask that, I was going to ask you about your weekly newsletter. So, how many subscribers have you got for that now?
So far, I think we're like 2,200 subscribers.
So to that, and in your community, I joined the community the other day. You've got over 1,000 subscribers, so 1,000 members in your community as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that was pretty insane to us. I didn't expect it, because I think I launched it a month ago now, maybe 5 weeks. And it went pretty quickly to 1,000. So yeah, that's growing. That's great to see.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And it's great. I'll include the links for that as well, so that people can see that's in the video. This is great. Again, that's a great resource and also a place for them to kind of meet people, meet other people that are interested in coming into the space, but also potentially, venture VC companies and the founders of businesses as well. So it's a good job on that. The question I was going to ask you is, so obviously, look, we're both working towards the same end. So it's helping people find a job and ultimately build a career in the green tech, climate tech space. But how can we bring more people? How can we bring more talent into the space? What else? What else can we be doing?
Yeah, I think that so far a lot of solutions out there, they're focusing on making a business model out of moving talent into a space. And what we were saying from the beginning was that the only thing that matters is that you build something that actually helps people move into the space. And so I feel like, for example, like newsletters that send out thousands of jobs every week, like who's going to go through each job of that and find a job? I feel like so far the solutions out there, they're just really confusing. No one really understands transparently what climate tech even means. And then you just give them a bunch of filters and you're like, here, find a job. And is it like a non-profit or for-profit? What am I looking at? It's very confusing. So when I started, like, I think only in April, I started the job board. And I didn't want to start a job board, but then I looked at all the job boards in Europe and it was just horrendous. It was some people like claiming they have, I don't know how many tens of thousands of newsletter subscribers and moving people into the space, but they were just sending out these jobs in an email. I just couldn't imagine that this would create value. So I think just really thinking about how to help people understand the space and how to build something that's really centered around them is really key. One thing we're trying to do and we're still working on is that you just set up your profile on the website. You just basically tick the boxes of what you're looking for. And then the moment, probably it will be like every Monday, we'll just quickly tick a box in our backend and you'll get a Slack message with, hey, these 15 jobs, 30 jobs, 50 jobs fit exactly what you were looking for. So I guess, yeah, just be really user-centric and understand what they need.
Yeah, I like that. Also, like what I think you said it there as well is education. So, I mean, we do a huge amount of outreach. We speak to a huge amount of people on a daily basis. So I think as I told you before, Tim, our niche is like very much tech. So it's software engineers and product owners is our bread and butter. They're the kind of typical roles we place. But when we reach out to someone, pretty often we're talking to them about a green tech, climate tech company. The first question is, well, what is that? What does that actually mean? So as part of our outreach, we're kind of talking to them about the space and talking to them about what it actually means and the fact that there's a pretty common misconception as well, is that if you're going to come into the space, or certainly as a software engineer, that you might need to sacrifice your earning potential or sacrifice your salary in order to kind of come into the market, which is, we're finding that is largely kind of untrue actually. So there are certain startups, scale-ups that are at particularly early stages or perhaps not for profit, for example, where there are salary restrictions. But a lot of the companies we work with, at least, they've been receiving huge amounts of funding. There's huge amounts, huge of dollars, euros, coming into the market, and they are able to, you kind of get the best of both worlds. Get a good competitive salary, work on projects that are going to make a huge impact on on the planet and people's lives, and so it really does feel win-win for a lot of people.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. It's I think there's still this misconception that the moment you mention sustainability, people think about non-profits or something like that. But I mean, there's some people forecasting that the next 1,000 unicorns will be within climate tech. That means massive funding, massive companies trying to get the best talent. And it's getting also more and more competitive. There's a lot of companies coming up, so the salaries are already great and they will get better. And it's also just an industry that, like, the complete agricultural sector, the energy sector, the finance sector, with regulation coming in, is completely being disrupted. And so there will be a lot of money and there will be a lot of beautiful opportunities. So payment is definitely not an issue.
And one of the things that we find as well is as an industry, it's still it's an industry in its infancy. But there are a lot of millennial types. There's a lot of younger people that are CEOs, founders. I mean, like yourself, Tim, you're 27, 28, so you're less than 30. So we've got a lot of young people in the space, but there's also a lot of diversity as well in the space, which I find is great because we know that companies that have got a more diverse background, more diverse teams, they can be more productive. They can, their culture tends to be better, and they perform better as businesses generally as well. And it's really exciting to see companies coming up with female CEOs. People from all walks of life, different colors, different races. It's a great place to be in general, I'm finding.
Yes, no, 100%. Couldn't agree more.
Cool. So in terms of one of the things I was going to ask you as well. So as a business, so 4Zero, as I mentioned, our model is very much green tech, climate tech startups. So we've got different products and solutions that are specifically tailored towards that market. So a few of our initiatives, one of them is that we offer a deferred payment model, meaning that if we're making a hire for a company, they can kind of spread that payment across up to 6 months, which helps to protect their runway rather than a big chunk of money leaving their account on day one. And we also do a lot of for our CSR policy, we offset 10 tons of carbon. We plant 25 trees, and we donate 3 solar powered lights to children in Africa for every candidate we place. So that's one of our big commitments to help our impact. So, I mean, what more do you think, like companies like us or other recruitment companies in the space, people like yourself that are on a similar journey, what more could we be doing to kind of have a bigger impact ourselves as well as the companies we're supporting?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if in your case, the mission of the company is transition as many people as possible into the climate tech sector. So in that sense, the impact is the more successful you are with the company, the bigger your impact, right? So I think that is also, you see a lot of companies coming up and they're like, hey, we sell a pullover and then we plant a tree. And that to me doesn't really make a lot of sense. Instead, just like focus on creating the best business model that actively has an impact and to scale that as high as possible so that with your success, the impact is also going to scale. So I think that's the beauty of the climate tech sector, and that's the beauty of the whole kind of topic of social entrepreneurship, to work on something that has a big impact. So to be honest, I think if once you're in that space, it's all just about obviously questioning yourself. It can get tough to the balance between being a profit-seeking company and being impact-focused. So to make sure that the impact doesn't suffer from the profit-seeking, so as long as that is good, well aligned, and continuously questioned and reevaluated, I think that is the main thing one can do as a company. Yeah. And then everything on top obviously is a nice to have, but I think that should be everyone's main vision, is just refocus their business models and align their incentives in the right way so that the impact is the first thing.
Yeah. I mean, just to pick up on that point, the kind of the having an impact. The more impact you can make. Obviously, look, we are a profit-making business. As I think I'm not sure. Are you a profit-making business or a non-for-profit?
Yeah. So far for profit. Maybe we'll change that event in the future, but yeah, so far for profit.
But the more, the kind of more impact, the more profit, the more you can put back into it. So the more impact you can make, and it becomes this self-fulfilling, cycle. I feel, and I feel that companies that aren't working in that way in the next 5, probably less than that, 3 to 5 years, and are not, they're genuinely not having an impact, they are going to struggle to hire the best talent and bring them into the business, because there are so many companies out there now that are making great strides towards, achieving our targets for net zero as a planet, but going beyond that, and actively removing, not just kind of offset, but actually removing carbon and kind of moving us past that as well. So it's I'm excited. I'm excited to kind of watch your journey, Tim, as well, because I know that the platform's going from strength to strength. And I suppose, last question for you before we wrap it up. I mean, what does the vision look like? What does what do the next 2, 3, 5 years look like for Climate EU?
Yeah. One thing we're super excited about is basically like what I touched upon at the beginning, right? Like this, right now, there's still a bit of a lack of understanding what climate tech even means, and even massive, big investors and a lot of companies and a lot of rankings that come out. I always look at it, I'm like, doesn't really explain climate tech in a nice way, and it doesn't really break it down. So one thing we're working on, and that we'll hopefully like publish as soon as possible, is to really break down that sector. And so that if you're a job seeker or you're an investor or you're just interested in the space, you'll have our climate library just as a starting point. You can just say, okay, there's these kind of 8 buckets that climate tech is divided in. And then under that, there's these actually roughly 100 industries. It's a massive, giant puzzle. And so that's our big vision, that you just have a starting point where you understand all of these industries, you see the startups in the space, you see the investors in the space, you understand kind of what jobs are being looked for in a certain space. We're writing the first articles about industries now, for example, about regenerative agriculture and about alternative protein. And so you can actually, if you're passionate about this, understand what this actually means, who you should talk to in the space, as an investor, what you should look at, as a job seeker, what is the talent that is kind of needed at the moment, and get a feeling for, all these different industries. So that's a big vision, kind of to really build a platform that anyone who wants to learn about anything in climate tech can come to. And so, so far just focused on Europe. Let's see if we take it more globally, but that's a big vision, really, that once, as you said yourself, that one-stop shop for climate tech, for really anyone, and not just for investors or not just for people looking for a job.
Let's see if we can find you a few more hours in the day as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking for an intern right now. So if anyone listens to this and is very motivated, then and keen to build something in the space, then reach out.
Hopefully that will happen. That'd be amazing for someone to kind of see this and then get in contact with you. So we'll include your details on this, your LinkedIn profile, so people can kind of reach out to you. But Tim, it's been fantastic to chat to you. I could chat to you all day, and like I said, good luck with everything. We'll be watching and waiting to see what the future looks like. And what you said about what you said about the vision, that really feeds back into this whole education piece, doesn't it? So, the more people that we can educate about the space and the sector, the more people that can get the message out to, the more it's just going to grow and grow and grow. So, good luck with it, Tim. I will, we'll be speaking soon, no doubt, and I'll be looking forward to getting the updates from you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you for having me.
No problem. I'll speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.